This is a short story by Herman Charles Bosman called Willem Prinsloo's Peach Brandy. No, Oom said, you don't get flowers in the Groot Mariko. It is not a bad district for mealies, and I once grew quite good onions in a small garden I made next to the dam. But what you can really call flowers are rare things here. Perhaps it's the heat or the drought. Yet whenever I talk about flowers, I think of Willem Prinsloo's farm on Apjachterskop where the dance was, and I think of Fritz Pretorius sitting pale and sick by the roadside, and I think of the white rose that I wore in my hat jauntily. But most of all, I think of Rita. If you walk over my farm to the Hoogte and look towards the northwest, you can see Apjachterskop behind the ridge of the Dwarsberge. People will tell you that there are ghosts in Apjachterskop and that it was once the home of witches. I can believe that. I was at Apjachterskop only once. That was many years ago, and I never went there again. Still, it wasn't the ghosts that kept me away, nor was it the witches. Rita Prinsloo was due to come back from the finishing school at Zeerust, where she had gone to learn English manners and dictation and other high-class subjects. Therefore, Willem Prinsloo, her father, arranged a big dance on his farm at Apjachterskop to celebrate Rita's return. I was invited to the party. So was Fritz Pretorius. So was every white person in the district, from Dadderpoort to Ramotza. What was more, practically everybody went. Of course, we were all somewhat nervous about meeting Rita. With all the superior things she had learnt at the finishing school, we wouldn't be able to talk to her in a chatty sort of way, just as though she were an ordinary Boer girl. But what fetched us all to Apjachterskop in the end was our knowledge that Willem Prinsloo made the best peach brandy in the district. Fritz Pretorius spoke to me of the difficulty brought about by Rita's learning. Yes, Jong, he said, I'm feeling pretty shaky about talking to her, I can tell you. I've been rubbing up my education a bit, though. Yesterday I took out my old school slate that I last used when I left school 17 years ago, and I did a few sums. I did some addition and some subtraction. I tried a little multiplication too, but I've forgotten how it's done. I told Fritz that I would have liked to have helped him, but I never learnt as far as multiplication. The day of the dance arrived. The postcart bearing Rita to her father's house passed through Dokkedal in the morning. In the afternoon I got dressed. I wore a black jacket, fawn trousers and a pink shirt. I also put on the brown boots that I bought about a year before and that I'd never had an occasion to wear. For I would have looked silly walking about the farm in a pair of shop boots when everybody else wore homemade veldschoens. I believed, as I got on my horse and set off down the government road, with my hat rakishly on one side, that I would easily be the best-dressed young man at that dance. It was getting on towards sunset when I arrived at the foot of Apjachterskop, which I had to skirt in order to reach Willem Prinsloo's farm, nestling in the hollow behind the hills. I felt as I rode that it was stupid for a man to live in a part that was reputed to be haunted. The trees grew taller and denser, as they always do on rising ground. They also got a lot darker. All over the place were queer, heavy shadows. I didn't like the look of them. I remembered stories I had heard of the witches of Apjachterskop and what they did to travellers who lost their way in the dark. It seemed an easy thing to lose your way among these tall trees. Accordingly, I spurred my horse onto a gallop to get out of this gloomy region as quickly as possible. After all, a horse is sensitive about things like ghosts and witches, and it was my duty to see my horse was not frightened unnecessarily, especially as a cold wind suddenly sprung up through the poort, and once or twice it sounded as though an evil voice were calling my name. I started riding fast then, but a few moments later I looked around and realized the position. It was Fritz Pretorius galloping along behind me. "What is your hurry?" Fritz asked when I slowed down to allow his overtaking me. "I wished to get through those trees before it was too dark," I answered. "I didn't want my horse to get frightened." "I suppose that's why you were riding with your arms around his neck," Fritz observed, "to soothe him." I did not reply, but what I did notice was that Fritz was also very stylishly dressed. True, I beat him as far as shirt and boots went, but he was dressed in a new grey suit with his socks pulled up over the bottoms of his trousers. He also had a handkerchief which he ostentatiously took out of his pocket 7 times. Of course, I couldn't be jealous of a person like Fritz Pretorius. I was only annoyed at the thought that he was going to make himself ridiculous by going to a party with an outlandish thing like a handkerchief. We arrived at Willem Prinsloo's house. There were so many ox wagons drawn up in the veld that the place looked like a lager. Prinsloo met us at the door. "Go right through, Carols," he said. "The dancing's in the voorhuis, the peach brandy's in the kitchen." Although the voorhuis was big, it was so crowded as to make it impossible